the other thing is Rhino was a great ball player. I mean, he was MVP in that 1984 season. It really jump-started the modern Cubs. And he's a Hall of Fame player. At one point, he was the only second baseman to hit 30 home runs back-to-back seasons. And there were a lot of things that Rhino was the first to do in the 1980s and 90s. And people can, we start to talk about how we feel about him, and those should be first and foremost in our minds. But Ryne Sandberg was one hell of a baseball player.
10 All-Star appearances, 9 straight gold gloves. All right, let's bring in Michael Wilbon, who joins us on the Yingling guest hotline. Michael, you've talked about it a lot, like when you grow up and you start rooting for a player, there is nothing like your love for that player the rest of your life. Ryne Sandberg was one of those for me. Like Walter Payton brought me to the Bears, and Ryne Sandberg brought me to the Cubs. Even though I liked Cubs players before him, it was the first time that I'd hope in my Cub fan life in that 1984 season. We lost a legend last night. What do you remember about Ryne Sandberg?
Well, he ushered in, Silvy, to me, the modern Cub era of baseball. It's not the era that I grew up idolizing players, because the guys I idolized came before Ryne, and he got to get to know them, and I know how much he sort of genuflected at first before them, Ernie and Billy and Fergie and Ron Santo, but that was the era in which we had only the individual accomplishments to revel in, and Sandberg and Harry Carey ushered in a new era, and that was '84 and Rick Sutcliffe. There's a game that is a famous game. If you're of a certain age, you may be too young for that. No, maybe you're not too young.
I was
The Sandberg
12.
game against the Cardinals, okay. And so I remember that game. I was covering baseball that summer. I was covering the Orioles. And, he beat the Cardinals essentially by himself that day with those 2 home runs in June of '84. And, there are no lights at Wrigley yet. You're just coming off the era of all those great players that I mentioned, but it was '84 in which the Cubs were finally competitive. Remember, that may be the first year of your life at 12. Mm-hmm. It was the first year of my life at 25 that they were really competitive, that they could win a division, or so we thought. And they did. And so we thought they could get to the World Series, and they had a 2-0 lead on the Padres. And we thought they were going to get there. But Ryne Sandberg ushered that in. And the popularity of it, and Wrigleyville as we know it today, and Wrigley Field as we know it today, joyous. That was Ryne Sandberg and Harry Carey. Let's be, Hawk had some, it was the MVP award, and whenever that was, 1987 or whatever, and he had something to do with it. But Sandberg, remember, Ryne Sandberg was here in the end of the prime of Walter Payton. He was before Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. And so Chicago did not have the feel, Chicago sports Sundays did not feel like they have subsequently over the last 40 years. And that was the first one, the way I define it. And so it's just sad. I mean, I'm a year older than Rhino. And to lose him at this part of his life, where he's got the end of the prime of his life, with a wife and children and grandchildren, that part is personally sad. And then there's the civic treasure that he was and is and will always be. This is, to have statue outside of Wrigley, and to have those memories, and to just conduct himself the way he did, understanding, like you said, he understood what he meant. And I think one of the ways that we're the luckiest in Chicago, as opposed to some other places, is that we have people who understood. We have guys who understood what they meant.
Yeah, it's
populous.
It's one thing, and Mike, it's one thing and I get it. Things evolve, and now we live in an era of bat flips and all kinds of other stuff. But it's one thing to be acknowledged for your accomplishments and the numbers you put up, but to be recognized by your teammates and your peers in the manner in which Rhino's been respected and people have talked about him. That takes it to another level for me.
Oh, well, yeah, it's both. It's both. It's when you mentioned some of the names, and I started thinking of the people that I feel grateful to have grown up. They weren't called influencers then, but they influenced the hell out of us. Silvy talks about that with the guys that he came up with. I had Ernie Banks and Billy Williams and Fergie Jenkins and Ron Santo. I mean, seriously, could I get any better than that? Probably not.
Right.
And then we had Walter Payton. Yeah, I have to tell you, we had Walter Payton and Ryne Sandberg. It's just the gentlemen they were, the way they behaved in public and privately, the way that they conducted themselves in the fields of play, and the way their peers adored them. That they were influencers, whether we knew it or not, and maybe they would come to influence the rest of our lives more than they did those days, which were long before Instagram and TikTok and things where you got immediate feedback. They had some deep-rooted effect on what you believed and how you believed it.
This is for both of you guys. I'll throw you guys a curveball. My mom texted me, and she was asking me about what she thought she was trying to put together her Mount Rushmore of Cubs players, and like Sandberg being on it, and Ernie and Billy, and who her fourth would be. And
that's kind of a personal decision because different players mean different things to you.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, and then I was starting to think if you could put together like a Mount Rushmore of Chicago sports and compare it to the other Mount Rushmores of other cities where we would rank. You have Michael Jordan.
Did that this morning. Yeah, it's we got to be careful with that because there's some cities that have.
Don't be knocking on Boston's door.
Well, and I was thinking
I was just starting to cover sports nationally when I was in L.A. and I was with Magic Johnson one day and watched Fernando Valenzuela pitch. That's half one right there.
There you go.
A modern one, a very modern
think about
one.
what L.A. could put together. They have Shohei, and they have all Kobe and Magic, and on and on. I was thinking about San Francisco with Montana and Rice, and then you can go Barry Bonds. Huh?
Steph as well, right? Because
Steph, and it would be Steph. Yes.
Make mine.
It would be Steph, and it would be Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds.
Willie Mays.
Willie, right. No, you're right.
You're really showing your age now.
Okay,
who put Barry Bonds ahead of maybe the greatest baseball player ever.
Okay, that's what I mean. I don't think Chicago would win.
No,
in that. I mean, we start with Michael and Walter. That's really good.
You got Michael and Walter. You got
Kaner?
Michael and Walter.
Maybe
What's that?
Does Kane go on there as the greatest American hockey player?
Depends on. I mean, you got. I looked at Philadelphia today. My friend Jeff Nyanek started this morning with me in a text where I said, "Be careful." I mean, Philly's got Julius Erving, Bobby Clark, Mike Schmidt, and then I forgot Reggie White. I mean, be careful. Be careful. I mean, having Jordan and Peyton is a great place to start.
Yeah.
I don't even know who my other two would be. It's too hard. I'm too old. I've got people, yes, I might want to put Patrick Kane on. At one time, and not knowing as much as we know now, you put Bobby Hull on. He was the first person to ever score 50 goals. Right. And he won. He did win one Stanley Cup. And so there are people that you would put on if you go back far enough. You've got people on that we're not even thinking about that are fair. That, first of all, Ernie Banks can easily be on that Mount Rushmore. Easily. And so, Chicago, we're right in there. Boston had one. I'm trying to think of what I had this morning with Bird and
Tom Brady.
There wasn't a hockey player.
Yeah.
On. No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking of guys at one time. Like
all
people
time.
who were in that place. There's one time and there's all time.
All time.
And those are different, and they're fascinating to think about. And Ryne Sandberg would be included in both those discussions.
Because I was
Boston, you'd beat Ted Williams.
Yeah.
Right? Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm. Larry Bird.
And who's the
Bill
best
Russell.
black? Who's
Bill
the
Russell.
Best, Bill Russell. Yeah, I was going to say and then one of the best Bruins of all time.
Well, you have Esposito.
Bobby
you
Orr.
have all kinds of people.
Bobby
You
Orr.
have Orr. You have most people. I guess most Boston, most New Englanders would say Orr, who spent.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't spend his whole time. He spent 2 years in the Blackhawks. But yeah, but you have that, and in each place, you have people that you celebrate with as much gusto as you can, and then you get to a point where you mourn them, and you do that, and there's emotion that wells up in you that you're probably not ready for. We lost Walter Payton at 49 years old.
Tragic. Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, people, don't realize that Walter was that young. And I think of Chicago just losing people. My God, we could have our own Mount Rushmore of losing people unbelievably young. A movie was made about that once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have, sort of the best of it, and we have something that is really harder to swallow. But, the other thing is Rhino was a great ball player. I mean, he was MVP in that 1984 season. It really jump-started the modern Cubs. And he's a Hall of Fame player. At one point, he was the only second baseman to hit 30 home runs back-to-back seasons. And there were a lot of things that Rhino was the first to do in the 1980s and 90s. And people can, we start to talk about how we feel about him, and those should be first and foremost in our minds. But Ryne Sandberg was one hell of a baseball player.
10 All-Star appearances, 9 straight Gold Gloves.
One of the most, and this kind of a side conversation, but one of the things to me that is most stark and telling about just the evolution of the game and Wrigley is when you see the videos from the Sandberg game, and then you see what Wrigley looks like right now. It's mind-blowing and breathtaking to see the renovation that has taken place there. And I think it's all for the better as well. I mean, it's crazy.
Well,
they don't even look like the same place.
Well, remember, there's also HD in the way we see it, literally.
True.
Mm-hmm.
And there is manicuring. I mean, the way they take care of baseball fields now, and I've already seen it.
It looked like it, Mike, to use a golf term, it looked like a goat track back in '84.
But all the parks did. And remember, they shared their fields with football teams, all of them.
Yeah.
Not a few of them, all of them shared their stadiums. Not just with football, one football team, but there might be a Saturday game, a Sunday game, and then a Tuesday baseball game. So they look like goat tracks. But you know what? I can say this, having walked into Wrigley Field, and I know what it felt like and looked like when I was 10 years old, and I know what it feels like and it looks like at 65. And you know what? To me, it doesn't seem that different.
Nee, I'm with you, too. As different as it is, it still feels like the same place.
Really?
I think that's why I think that's a testament
well,
to
you guys speak as Cub fans as well, so I mean.
But I think that's as good. It shows you how good of a job they've done.
Yeah.
It hasn't lost the charm, but it's gotten the upgrades of the modern amenities.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place to go and just sit and eat your lunch.
Yes.
If you wanted to do that.
Yeah. I want to go to some football. We're sitting in the basement of House Hall right now. We went to practice today. We were at practice yesterday. We've been at a couple practices last week. On your network, Michael, and I know you don't love the modern way in some of these shows. Everything's a hot take. And this morning on Get Up, in these last 2 days, they went from there's one person who thinks that there should be lots of patience given to Caleb Williams, considering that it's a new head coach and everything he went through last year. And then there are a couple other guys on the same panel who think too much leeway has been given to Caleb, and there shouldn't be any patience given, that he needs to be great and he needs to be great now. Where is your level of patience?
Or what? They're going to spank him or take away his money? I mean,
his lunch money.
That's why I don't pay attention to that stuff. I just don't.
Wait, so
my time.
What is proper context? What is the best way?
The context is he's a second-year quarterback with a rookie head coach who is going to hopefully really coach him hard in the direction in which he needs to be coached. This is not an instant work. It's a work in progress, and they're not going to be great in September. And I don't care whether or not somebody thinks that they don't need to have patience. Of course, you got to have patience. What's the alternative? If I was sitting on that set, and I used to sit on all these sets, I would look at the person and say, what's the alternative to having patience? What are you going to do to him? Beat him? What are you going to do? Take off your belt? So some of these things are just stupid, and people don't get challenged in common sense ways. They want to talk about, they've got, numbers, and they've got trends, and they've got, what some scout says. The Bears are going to have to be patient with Caleb Williams. They just chose him first overall. So what are they going to do? They're going to be patient. Now, you can be annoyed. You can coach him hard. You can cajole him. You can threaten him. You can do all those things. Like when somebody said the other day, Ben Johnson threw the first team off the field. Good. Tommy, how many times did Ditka throw the first team off the field?
Quite a bit.
Okay. So
threw a player off today,
things,
Michael.
Yeah.
He threw Luther Bird and the rookie off.
Good. Because that's called coaching.
Yeah.
You think Bill Walsh didn't throw Jerry Rice and Joe Montana off the field? I've been there. Yes, he did. So what? And nobody ever looks at anybody. These are all very smart, capable guys who play the game on these sets and say, so what? Nobody does that because that tends to stop the conversation, and it tends to, in most of their cases, turn them just right back to Aaron Rodgers and who back get his money. So there's not really, if you want to get levels deep, you have to do that without going back to the same old drivel.
So if you're not, you're not married to numbers and all kinds of other things, and I know that you're not when these types of evaluations take place, but what would you, Michael Wilbon, very experienced sports consumer, what would you, and huge Bears fan, what would you consider a successful season for the Bears' second-year quarterback?
It's almost like I said last year when we had this conversation a year ago. I want to see steady improvement. And I do mean improvement because I don't think September is going to be pretty. They might go out there and beat the hell out of the Vikings, and people are acting ridiculous about a guy who I was so glad to see. Who was it? Somebody was on the set of Get Up yesterday and was talking about the Vikings quarterback's a rookie. He handed the ball off, and he threw the ball about 12 times a game at Michigan, which means nothing. And they've got him being Joe Montana and leading the Vikings to the Super Bowl, and that's just stupid. I don't care how long you played the game. So he's a rookie. And if he's going to be that great, he's going to lead the Vikings someplace that they haven't been since Fran Tarkenton, then I'll go back and apologize. But some of these, again, these opinions are so bizarre, and they're not challenged. I don't know about a record. I'm more in the 9-8 camp, hopeful, because the schedule is the third hardest schedule in the league.
So would you say, Mike,
what's that?
I would say, so would you then say, kind of as this is connected, that a disappointing year would be one where you just didn't see the necessary progress, and it would be an eye test. I got to see progress. I got to see improvement and progress. Yeah, I want them to be a lot better in November than they were in September. Yeah, absolutely. And win some games. Yes, there going to be some games where people will say, and Vegas may say, that they're underdogs. I don't care about that. Go to Washington and get revenge for last year. Do that.
Yes.
There's some games that, they should be crusades. And I think they have the talent to do that. I hope they have the coaching to do it. I certainly hope Caleb will make strides. I do not think that just because somebody had a great year last year means they're going to be great again. All we got to do is go to Houston and look at the quarterback there from rookie to second year. And I hope Caleb has the opposite, that his sophomore year will be a year of growth. And I believe that Ben Johnson is just what he needs. And throwing people out of practice is great. Thank God.